So I have people all the time coming to me and saying, you're wrong. And I'm like, okay, how? And they tell me, I'm like, you're right. I'm sorry. Or, not really. You need to actually think about that a little bit closer. Right? Like it's this mutual thing. And that's how we choose to lead. That I really believe that that's kingdom, that's how Jesus led. Do you think the disciples at the time questioned Jesus?
Oh yeah.
They did. Was Jesus wrong? No. But he gave them opportunity to question and to think and to talk. And it wasn't wrong to question the way they did things. And it's not wrong now to question, why do you guys do the things you do? Famous last words? We've always done it that way, right? It's always been done that way. Why would we do it any different? And so we're in this transition time now, this in history, where you have one generation that, and I'm in this generation, that is actually getting ready to pass over a torch to a younger generation, and it's never been done properly in the past. It's always been a younger generation disdaining the older generation because they're weird, and while they do it, and they don't like us, and so there's no relationship. And so when the torch is about to be passed, there is no torch. And there is nothing passed. And so the generation that is coming up actually are forced to redo everything that we have been working on, that this generation has been working on, that this generation has been working on. And so what I believe is part of the fivefold ministry and momentum is relationship. Yeah. Is us having relationship with everybody that I can learn from I'm going to use Hugo's as an example. My friend Richard is an amazing teacher, and I learn from him, and then I take what I've learned and I give it to another generation, and there's relationship, and it's cross-generational because we're all doing the same thing, but we have relationship, so when the time comes to raise up and release leaders, they have our heart. And that's what God has done. God says, if I can have your heart, if I can have a relationship with you, we can do anything. And it doesn't matter what generation you're from. If you have a relationship with Christ and you have his heart, you can do it. And we learn. And that's why when you say, our ceiling will be the next generation's floor. That's beautiful. But it hasn't happened yet. Because we're more concentrating on they're doing things wrong. And I hear in leaders, I'm going to be careful because I'm live. I've been in situations where I've talked to leaders and I've said, who do you have up and coming? And they said, nobody, because that younger generation is stupid. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what's coming up. They want to do this. And I'm like, but that could work. Oh, you're crazy. That's never going to work. We tried that once in the 50s and it didn't work. Yeah, but this is the 21st century now. If you go with that thinking, like if you think of NASA in the 1950s started developing a program to get to space, right? Hey, if we create this rocket and we strap two people to the top of it, maybe they can make it to space, right? And we all know the history. They went up, it went down. They blew up more rockets than they actually sent up as they're developing, and it was just the idea. If we can actually make something that's powerful enough and shoot it into space, we'll be good. Hey, we got there. And then the next generation comes along, and they said, why not put somebody on the moon? Well, we got the rockets working. No, that's crazy. Our whole intent is simply just to put two rockets into space, and we're good. No, they take the concepts of the previous generation, and they go, what about if we go to the moon? And now you have a generation that is going, we want to live out there. We want to set up a base on the moon, or we want to go to Mars. See, within the church, we've limited ideas and stuff because we don't agree with it, because we don't have a relationship with the next generation. And we cut ourselves off from the kingdom. We cut ourselves off because we think that we're not serving. We think, wow. My brain just went, I had two thoughts come out at the same time. We are so concerned about our position that we forget that there's other ideas out there that will complement what God has done. And the older we get, the more hard it is for us to actually go, wow, that's a really good idea. I hadn't thought of that. And I'm finding myself, I'm 47, I'm closer to 50 than I am 40, and I'm like, I have to be careful because there's a trend right now of everybody bashing the millennials. You know, there's this and it's funny. Oh my gosh, is it funny? It's hilarious. But at the same time, if we're not careful, we're going to cut ourselves off in relationship, because how many people like to be dishonored over and over and over again for a belief system? I know I love it. You see what I'm saying? If we are to move what God is doing and the amazing things of this time, of this period in the 21st century, 2017, God is doing so much. And if we are to continue the momentum, we have to allow the younger generations to come up and we're going, yeah, you are an apostle in this area. How many of you guys realize that the restoration of the apostolic and the restoration of the prophetic is something that is on God's heart? Because he gave us the 5 gifts. He gave us apostles and prophets and what? What's the third one? Apostles, evangelists, teachers, pastors. He's given us all. We need all 5. We need that to be that representation of Jesus in the earth. And with that comes an opportunity for us to look at everyone and say, what is God doing in your life? We could have teenagers that are apostles. See, apostle isn't a retirement plan for a retired pastor. That's how it's been traded. Oh, he planted 3 or 4 churches and he's an apostle. No, that's not what an apostle is. What's an apostle? One is that's sent out. But in our day and age, in our mindset, an apostle is a father. He's a father, and he or she are fathers and mothers, and or architects, because they build something. They see the bigger, and they raise up other leaders, and they do. But the biggest thing is, instead of lording it over, they father. A good father doesn't control. A good father doesn't, he brings correction, but he does it through a hug. Does that make sense? Does that is lights have you thought of it that way before? Yeah, good. So getting back to at the beginning when I was talking about the thoughts and things that we've come into belief. In an open, thriving leadership, we're all leaders, right? We all lead something. We need to remember, just derailed a bit. In an open, thriving leadership atmosphere, where the presence of the Lord is, where there's freedom, we can't be afraid of being controlled. We need to be afraid of being controlled. Not in that, oh, you're controlling me. But we need to be aware. That's the word that I'm looking for, not afraid. We need to be aware that there's the potential of control, of subjugation, of these things. And then when we start doing things in freedom, people who are threatened by that, they say what? When people are threatened by other people's freedom, What's a good catchphrase in our kingdom culture or in our church culture? Anybody know where I'm going with this? Who's your covering? Right? It's like, oh, you left to go there. Who's your covering? So these are these things that we need to be aware of and go, Jesus is my covering. Paul said it over and over again. I'm Paul, the apostle, sent by who? Jesus. Sent by God. It's like, who's your covering? Well, it was never a question back then. And it shouldn't be now. Because it's not, who's your covering is not a scriptural, there's no sense of scripture in that. It is not a scriptural truth. And so together as House of Hope, and I want to, oh my gosh, I went two different directions, now I'm trying to pull it back together. As House of Hope, our heart, and as leaders, as our leadership team, our heart is to serve every one of you. Our heart is to lead with a heart of a servant, is to wash feet, and whatever that looks like. We've said that, we say that, oh, we just got to wash feet. And so in the past, in church services that I've been part of in years past, we have the foot washing ceremony, right? And so we've taken something that is a heart attitude and we've turned it into a ritual, and it's uncomfortable for everybody. It's like, and it's humbling and it's necessary at times, but at other times it's like, well, why didn't you serve in the area that actually makes more sense? Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Like, I don't want to criticize, but at the same time, we end up doing things that are biblical out of a sense of we have to, rather than out of a sense of a revelation, of relationship with the Father. It's like generosity. We give because why? Because we're commanded to be generous, but because our Father is generous and we're copying Him. But if we take generosity and we turn it into an Old Testament law of tithing, we miss something. And I'm not getting onto that, just an example that popped to mind, and I'm not digging anything here. But I'm just saying, if it becomes ritual rather than relationship, we get ourselves into trouble. And we no longer serve, we just do the rote. Come to work every day, do this, blah, blah, blah. It's just because that's what we do. But we miss the relationship side of it. Okay. I had way more scriptures. I want to give you this one, and then I think I'm going to tie it up because I really did go two different directions. So if you felt like this was a double whammy message this morning, it really was, because somewhere along the line I got caught up into the whole generation thing, and that wasn't part of my original thought. But I think somebody else needed to hear it. So, I want to just tie into this whole government idea. Jesus said, if you want to be, in Matthew 25, if you want to be a leader, you have to be a servant. Jesus said in Mark 8:15, be careful, watch out for the leaven of the Pharisees and that of Herod. There's two leavens, and this is what we have to be careful. This is where the church is erred, and they've set up a leadership system that subjugates people. And that's where this leaven of Herod, that's the political spirit, has come in. And that's why I think we do what we do, is because we've allowed this leavening, this yeast, to corrupt us. And so we go, oh, in order for us to lead, we have to control. And so that's where I wanted to get into that. I'm backtracking, and I apologize, because I wanted to get those in there. So governments have a top-down control type of thinking, and that's because I'm elected, and Jesus is not about that. Paul wasn't about that. So as people, what do we want to do? As a people, in our leader, in anything that we lead, how do we lead? We serve. Yeah. How does that look? That's totally up to you. It really does. It's not for me to say, well, you need to serve in this way, and you need to serve in this way, and you need to serve in that. What am I doing? I'm controlling, right? Well, no, the Bible says you have to serve, so I want you to serve. So it's each of us seeing a need, meeting the need, and serving as Jesus would serve. And some of us are leading. In other words, some of us are on different levels. Some of us are actually, like, there's a leadership team of House of Hope, and we're, we move things along. Does that mean you're any less than they are? No, it just means that they have a different grace. It just means that they have a different grace we have a different grace in our lives than you do. It's not bad. It's not great. It's just different. So, right? I think that's it. There's more, but all right. Sorry. I lost some of you, I know. I apologize. Let's stand. I just, as a closing ministry time, is that done?
Do you want to do that?